Whether it's young, impassioned love or committed couples forced to face their darkest demons, there's no doubt in these movies that love is in the air, romance is undead, and monsters really aren't all that scary if you can bang them. I am the ever unlovable Ash from What Culture, and these are the 10 best horror movie romances. 10. Warm Bodies. Coming at a time when zombie movies had largely overstayed their welcome, Warm Bodies strived to do something a little different with the genre, but was ignored and then outcast by the world's sheer annoyance at being faced with yet another undead film in 2013. That's not to say Warm Bodies isn't a good movie though, as it really does make a case for its existence by creating a unique world where true love is the antidote to zombieism, focusing on Nicholas Hoult spending time with a human girl that transforms his rather sickly pallor into that of a real-life boy. The romance between the two is unconventionally sweet, playing out as a horror comedy that puts its faith in Holt's perspective rather than from a human angle. Really, considering that in essence it is one big cell for necrophilia fixing the world's problems, Warm Bodies is a surprisingly heartwarming movie, and a thoroughly enjoyable time throughout. There's also one long joke in there somewhere for romance really getting your pulse racing, but who am I to say it? 9. Honeymoon. Starring Game of Thrones' own Rose Leslie as Bee, the newlywed is on a titular honeymoon with husband Paul, with the two travelling out to a remote area of the countryside where they can spend some, quality time together. Their romance is fresh and exciting and tender, slowly and carefully painting the picture of the couple as very deeply in love. But of course, we're in a horror movie, and all that feeling doesn't count for anything here. Bee suffers from a bout of sleepwalking in the dead of night, returning looking the same, but remarkably different to the woman that Paul knows on the inside. Desperate to find out what's changed as she slowly devolves into a stranger, the love between the two was doomed as soon as we were introduced to just how happy the pair were together. It's a passionate, sad story that sees Paul try to save his love before the sinister truth comes to light, and if the eerie glow in the forest is anything to go by, that light is a lot more literal than you'd think. 8. Cat People. As soon as you say the premise of Cat People out loud, it sounds absolutely bonkers. The film stars Simone Simon as Irina, a Serbian woman convinced that if she gets down and dirty with her husband, that she will turn into a giant cat and wreak havoc on everyone around her. Believed to be part of an ancient race of cat people, her paranoia controls her relationship with a new husband and starts to wear down their connection. So he searches elsewhere for a woman that doesn't believe she'll tear him apart as soon as they start the pants dance. It's a tragic romance story, one that starts out idyllic as ever and slowly descends into cacophony as Irina attempts to juggle her animalistic nature and her human relationships in one messy bundle. Cat People might not have an aspirational love at its centre, but the breakdown of the emotional baggage between the characters is enrapturing. And where else are you going to get a film that balances horror, cats, and sex in one? 7. The Fly. Another romance with tragedy at its centre, as the genre usually dictates, is The Fly, one of the seminal Cronenberg horror movies from the 1980s that sees a scientist figure out teleportation before accidentally merging himself with a housefly in the process. When Seth Brundle manages to transport himself between two devices, neither he nor his girlfriend Veronica count on a fly getting entangled with his DNA. What ensues is Seth slowly and viscerally transforming into Brundlefly, becoming something that's not quite man and not quite insect as he revels in his newfound strength and metabolism. As he grows ever stranger and more aggressive, however, Veronica becomes increasingly worried for her state of being, with the pair attempting to work things out as people around them are torn apart by Brundle's primal instincts. It's quirky, gross, and downright weird, but The Fly is one hell of a movie, with its very own version of romance at the centre. Let's just say it's not real love unless they are willing to pop a shotgun shell in your face. 6. Candyman. An urban legend fueled by vengeance and power, Candyman might not seem like the ideal boyfriend if you take into consideration he is a ghostly apparition with a hook for a hand that murders almost everyone he happens across. Candyman's legend is born from a slave that was lynched for falling in love with a white woman and fathering a child with her, murdered simply for being in a relationship with the wrong person and hell-bent on bringing her back in the form of protagonist Helen Lyle. Helen is a journalist, eerily similar in looks to Candyman's ex-flame as some sort of reincarnation of the man's long-lost love. A role she takes on as the terrifying entity begins to overwhelm her existence. CANDYMAN is dangerous, intense, and malicious in his actions, but the tragedy in the drive of his arc makes him nothing but dedicated to Helen and a pursuit of truth. It is not necessarily a healthy relationship, but the emotion behind it is undeniable, and paints his story with a bittersweet brush as well as with the horror of his appearance. 5. Shaun of the Dead. Your first thought about Shaun of the Dead isn't going to be that it's a romantic story. But really, what is more romantic than a person fighting their way through hordes of zombies to rescue their lover and keep them safe from the apocalypse? At the heart of this zom-com is a touching tale of romance where Shaun is desperately trying to prove that he is a worthwhile partner to Liz, who is quite frankly sick of his bullshit for most of the movie, which is fair enough, really. It might take the literal end of the world to get there, but Shaun's dedication to proving himself throughout his tumultuous relationship is as big a romantic move as any of the big hitters here. It just comes with a lot more smashing of zombie heads and pints than most, but who can argue with that stellar combination? 4. The Conjuring series. In a pair of movies so heavily defined by their central terrifying monsters, romance wouldn't seem to play the largest part in making the Conjuring series what it is. But if you took away the central pairing of the Warrens and their understated relationship throughout the movie, it wouldn't be half the success it has been since 2013. People just love love, man. Ed and Lorraine's sensitive portrayal of a long and dedicated marriage is low-key one of the best parts of the Conjuring movies, with the pair obviously knowing each other so intuitively that they hardly need to speak to each other when it comes down to figuring out their ghostly problems. They share romantic moments as much as they do bone-chilling fear, with Lorraine's love of Ed in particular played out across The Conjuring 2 to heartbreaking effect. They are very old school, and so charmingly developed it is hard not to fall in love with the both of them instantly. 3. Beetlejuice. Another long-term marriage that only becomes more and more endearing as the movie plays out. Barbara and Adam Maitland have one of the most wonderful relationships on screen, supporting each other, loving each other, and completely defying the notion of till death do us part throughout Beetlejuice's wacky narrative. The pair are in a freak car crash before returning to their home and discovering that they've died as a result, trapped between their own four walls for the rest of eternity, which wouldn't be so bad if the living didn't decide to move in and ruin their afterlife. It's not so much a sweep you off your feet romance as a strong and stable one, but the way the couple interact throughout the movie and become committed to living a ghostly life together in every sense of the word is particularly endearing to watch. Tim Burton really is the king of making creepy romantic. 2. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Revolving entirely around Dracula's sexy ways, Francis Ford Coppola's take on the legend sees Dracula develop a far more romantic edge than the vampires of past. Obsessed with finding his long-lost love Elisabetta, Gary Oldman fervently attempts to get his hands on the very lovely Mina, a reincarnation of his wife hundreds of years after he originally lost her to a Romeo and Juliet-esque suicide. Instead of being intent on dipping his fangs into any buxom woman that crosses his path, Dracula is less a saucy scoundrel and far more a creature driven by deep-seated love, with the movie a declaration of his passion throughout the ages for this one beguiling woman. Instead of running for our lives from a nasty, bitey, blood-sucking monster from the underworld, Coppola makes us low-key wish there was a partner out there as dedicated as old Batsy is to Elisabetta. That culminates in a touching realization that she is just as into him too. 1. Let the Right One In. Romantic in one of the quietest ways, Let the Right One In is another spin on the vampire legend that sees two youngsters spark up a tentative friendship. One being a lonely outcast, and the other a centuries-old creature that survives on consuming other humans. Whilst other films on this list celebrate adult relationships and vibrant passion, Let the Right One In is far more a look at the growth of romance between two children on the verge of growing up, where everything is new, scary, and delicate. And it's a triumph for its sensitivity towards young love. Yes, there is death and blood and gore, and Ellie and Oscar aren't a conventional pairing to root for in the grand scheme of things. But it all washes away seeing the power they imbue each other with to truly face their demons. Let the Right One In is definitively a brooding and dark piece. But with such a touching story at its centre, it's inevitably the most romantic one too. And that's our list. What love do you love to love? Share your findings in the comment section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Make sure to subscribe to the What Culture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.